Um, Hello, everyone. Welcome to your favorite Patreon live figure drawing / interview podcast, Life Studied. I'm here with my good friend Mairin-taj Caya. Mairin-taj, how are you?
Hello, I'm alright. How are you?
Pretty good. I'm a little low energy and tired because I overdid it at work, but I'm good. We are here at the Pennsylvania College of Art and Design, who sponsors the show, specifically the illustration department. And we get together, well, we make one of these a month, but we get together more often than that, to talk about just art and life and figure drawing related topics. And the folks at PCAD have been gracious enough to sponsor us and give us a place to record. As well as the folks at Blackwing. They send me pencils and I draw with them. So thank you to them. I'm a big fan of the Blackwing pencils, as are you.
Yeah, they're great.
And so yeah, I'll put a link in the description if you want to pick up Blackwing pencils. And anyway, Mairin-taj, how are you?
I'm adjusting. I'm readjusting to life. I had a little getaway for my birthday. So.
That's awesome. Yes, happy birthday.
I'm awake.
Yeah, you had a road trip, so that sort of wore you out. That's not fun.
Yeah.
And I think there's this idea that like artists can't wait to get out into the world because we're always in the studio and solitary, and it's like usually the opposite. They're like, you're gonna make me leave. So I get it. But you're feeling okay? Everything's good?
Yeah, I'm alright. You need to take it easy.
I do. So I'm not gonna show it on camera, but I blew out my left eye again. So I do that from time to time where I overwork and I get like these blood vessels that sort of pop, so it looks like my eye is bleeding. Not like actively bleeding, but there's like blood under the eye. So and I'm just sore from just overdoing it. I got a bunch of shit done over Easter break, but yeah, it's I'm paying the price now. But there is a physical cost to drawing. You know, we sort of think of it as like a relaxing, passive thing, but our bodies sort of pay the price. And I work standing, so it's extra, like it's a physical kind of thing for me.
Right. It's better than sitting all the time.
Sure. So, yeah. Although I have a little stool now, like this little kind of, my wife got me this funny, like, I don't know what they even call it. It almost looks like a saddle and a stool.
Well, it's kind of like a massage stool.
I guess it's meant to like, it moves a tiny bit. So the idea is that if you're sitting in it, your core still has to engage a little bit to keep you balanced in the thing.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I use that often to just like lay things on. I don't sit in it often, unless like, I have an old knee thing that sometimes I end up sitting in. But anyway, the point is we're talking about bodies a little bit today.
The figure, hey.
Yeah, and so I was working on a drawing recently, and outside of regular work, and it was of a more heavier set model. And as artists, that's pretty regular. Like we're used to the idea of drawing all different kinds of body types and genders and everything. And whenever I'm drawing any nudes, I'm always like a little leery of posting them because like people don't always get what it's about, right? Like, So this one I just posted it, and of course I was stuck then deleting a bunch of messages where guys were going, "Oh, look, fat chicks!" Like, and it made me think of our.
Like that's all they could see.
That's all they could see. I mean, often all they see is like, oh, it's a naked person. And it made me think of so 2 episodes ago, 3 episodes technically, but we had sort of a revisit of the show. And we talked about this guy I met who asked me what I did for a living. I told him, I've given this complicated answer that amounted to being an illustrator. And he's like, oh, you're an artist. And we sort of talked about how, quote unquote, civilians see this differently than us, and maybe there's some wisdom to simplifying it.
Yeah, right.
And this felt related to that but the other direction, where we see a lot of nuance in this stuff, and we see the benefits of drawing all body types. And sometimes folks outside of the art world just see a naked person, and it's either ha ha ha, or it's titillating, or something in between.
Yeah.
And they simplify it to the point where you're like, I've given up on trying to explain, like, hey, it doesn't, like, we're not just looking for attractive people to take their clothes off so we have an excuse to look at them.
Yes.
We're trying to study this stuff, and the body type, like, having variation is a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I was excited to meet with you and hear your thoughts on this, because I'm sure you have a more nuanced take on it than me.
I don't know, but I mean, you saying that just reminded me of being both an artist and an art model.
Right.
I've had a lot of times over the years where, you know, what I do can come up, and I'll say I also, you know, I have a side gig as an art model, and people will be like, oh, what's that about? And if they don't have any clue, you kind of say, or they'll straight up just be like, oh, you know, naked, and
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
And people who aren't artists can really, it's still very common that people interpret that in a sexual way.
Yes.
And it's unfortunate. I mean, our culture really doesn't educate the masses in the arts very well.
Right.
Which is a stumbling block for people. But I think that kind of relates to people seeing a nude drawing, and they're still just thinking of like, oh, it's a naked person.
Yeah.
You know, like, oh, boobs.
Yeah. Boobies. Yeah. I mean,
you know.
I imagine. I mean, but it's maybe, and I think we've touched on this before. It may be a uniquely American thing where you'd never see nude people outside of some sexualized content of some sort, right? And the idea of, I mean, the fig leaf over the genitals is sort of the like the or grape leaf, or however, whatever. That's sort of what we think of, right? We think of like, well, there's certain bits you have to cover, and unless you want to get everybody excited, which is like silly.
Yeah, it feels very juvenile.
Yeah.
You know, and I think a lot of artists who specifically work with the figure are of that mindset of like, come on, guys, this is a little kiddish. You know?
Yes.
Can we get over the fact that we all have genitalia? And like,
Yeah.
Look beyond that.
Yeah. and the study of it is important, right? Because so you know, we work with students, and last week, you know, I was working with some students she was drawing a character that had clothes on, and it had all kinds of drawing errors, and I was having to get her to think outside of just the covered figure, think of the structure of the figure, and then you dress it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and this is why we study the figure first, right? Because
undressed.
Right. You need to understand how the structure works, even to get the clothing right, frankly, right? Like, I will have to lecture about clothing anatomy and types of wrinkles.
Different fabrics and how they move.
Yeah, and how it's all instructed by the figure underneath, right?
Yes.
Like, what's a hanging fold versus a pipe fold going up an arm,
Right.
and it's all based on what's underneath. So
Right.
you can't. It's not a step you can skip. Really.
Sort of like if you're doing a still life and if you have a table with a fabric on it, you have to understand the structure of the table in order to understand how the fabric is on it.
Right.
Really
Yeah, that's a
basic.
great point. Yeah, I mean, because why the fabric behaves differently at the corners versus the straight edges,
Yeah.
and that's not that far removed from the fabric on your shoulder hanging
Right.
versus the fabric on your arm.
Right. Yeah.
So I figured we'd draw and talk about that, and why it's important to study all the figures and sort of get out of this silly idea that, oh, look, it's a fat chick or a fat dude or an old dude. I mean,
Age is another thing too. There's a lot of ageism.
Yeah.
Which is very frustrating.
yeah, I remember hearing from another artist. I had all these drawings of, we know an older gentleman that models, he used to model here at the school,
Right.
and had all these drawings of him. And he's like, what, dude? They couldn't find any older, uglier people for you to draw? And I'm like, yeah, dude, like, that's, like, I'm showing you because look at all the stuff I'm learning.
Yeah.
So even within and maybe that's just the dudes, I don't know, but even within the art world, there's a little bit of that, you know? And I think, I also blame popular culture takes, like, I think we've talked about this, the whole draw me like your French girl meme that came out of Titanic, and it's like, they can't separate the act of drawing a nude figure from something either sexual or romantic.
Yeah, right. Which
So-
is hilarious, because any artist, I think, should know, like, if you're Jack drawing Rose, like, you're obsessed with the drawing, you're not getting any...
Yeah.
There's no arousal.
She's gonna be really bored with
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, it's a really interesting topic. Let's get into it.
All right, let's do it.
And drawing, do you want to do 5s?
It's completely up to you. Yeah, that's fine. Whatever you're comfortable with, we'll jump right into.
I'm trying to go a little easy on you with your with your.
Yeah, my eye.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Look.
Oh, should I close the?
No, that's fine. That's just a brick wall. No.
So, let's see. So this particular drawing, I shared it with you.
And it's a brilliant drawing, by the way.
Well, thank you.
Like, it's spot on. It's so great.
Thank you. And it was fun. I mean, it was like, now I had to draw from a photo, which was the other comment. I deleted one comment that I thought was like particularly weird. The guy was like, was this from life? Because if it was, man, like she's really big. And I was like, what does that even mean to you exactly? Like,
Yeah, what do you think you're saying?
yeah, I almost wanted to ask him, like, I don't even understand the point 100%. Like, is it that she'd be too embarrassed or that I'd be embarrassed? Or I really didn't get how her weight had anything to do with whether it was appropriate to draw her live. And
Yeah, or just, does he think that she'll look smaller in a photo?
I don't know. I think, I kind of think it was, and again, I'm just guessing, but I think it had something to do with sort of the social stigma of like, you should cover up. You know, she couldn't possibly be a live model and be heavier.
Wow, like how dare you show your body?
I wonder, you know, because you see that with like the whole swimsuit thing, right? Like there was the movement of like anybody's swimsuit ready, right? Like it was kind of a body positivity message.
Yeah.
And then there was pushback after I think, is it the Sports Illustrated swimsuit thing? There was sort of pushback on the idea of like, you know, we've like distorted what beauty is, quote unquote, which is like, you know, laughable if you study art history and you think about like beauty meant a totally different thing throughout the ages than it does now. But anyway, I'm talking too much. I guess I was curious to hear your take on this goofball's comment.
You know, I like you. My response is just, what? What are you saying? I don't get that. And my knee jerk, because my personality is one to be hungry for knowledge and to want to educate whenever possible,
Right.
just to share understanding.
Yeah.
If someone shows they don't have that, but then of course, you know, like you, I've been through the rodeo enough with other artists or non-artists to know, like, I kind of give up on the whole education.
Yeah. There's no talking to some of these folks.
Yeah, right. So I'm a little wary of that, but.
Sorry, we are in a actual art school, so you're going to hear people from time to time in the background. I apologize. Give me 1 second. Shit, which one? Which one? Like the big actual meetings? Yeah. Do you want to
Hi.
take a break for a second?
Yeah.
No, you sure? Here, just come get it. Here. Sorry, folks. I don't need it tomorrow. No, Oh, you don't need it till tomorrow?
I didn't know you were in the report. Yeah.
Anyway, hi, how are you? I'm not frustrated at all. Anyway, I'm sorry, folks. Like I said, we are in an actual working art school, so stuff like that will happen during the live show. I apologize. Anyway, you were saying there's sort of like.
So I guess I'm saying I don't really know what my response is because it's kind of confusing, but I would want to help anyone listening to understand if they don't.
Yeah.
That from a visual figurative artist's perspective, everybody is interesting, everybody has beauty to it, everybody is worth, looking at, studying from an artistic perspective and learning from.
Yes.
And I think that you representing that on your social media and in your art is great, and I think it's one of your best, latest works.
Thank you. That's really super kind, actually.
Yeah, well, I mean, I love all your quick studies, but we've seen so many of them, so it was really refreshing to see something more intentional, dare I say? Or
No, I agree. I spent so much time doing quick studies that I was just like, it really is time to just slow down for a minute.
Right. And I think that whoever it was that kind of had that reaction, it's evident that he kind of just completely missed the point and missed the beauty in that.
And I tried to post it in stages too, so that
the process.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, which is what I always wanted to see, and no one shared. So.
Did you get any response to the process that was encouraging?
Yeah, I think so. I think there's sort of this mixed bag of people who get it and people who don't, and people who get it are like, hey, this is really wonderful. Thank you. I'm always surprised by people who have the opposite reaction as this gentleman that will actually thank me. Like someone else is knocking at the door.
Gentleman is a questionable term.
Yeah, I'm trying to be as gracious as I can be because maybe we could convince him and.
Yeah.
But anyway, I was surprised and I guess it's sort of in a way it's kind of sad, but people will literally thank me for like drawing other kinds of body types, and I just think like this is very normal outside of the civilian world. Like you go to an art school, this isn't like a weird thing. I'm not doing anything revolutionary.
Right, exactly.
And I appreciate them, being supportive, but at the same time, it almost it's a bummer. Like
it is.
That they feel like, man, this is so rare that I better thank this guy as if he's doing, the world a favor. And I'm like, again, I'm grateful, but I also feel like it says more about the culture than me doing something special.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you were mentioning that, and I was reminded of my own experiences there. I did a lot of heavier set bodies.
Yeah.
Specifically black and brown bodies.
That's
a while
another.
ago, and a couple of years ago, and it was just kind of like veering to the other end of the spectrum because I noticed, okay, I'm doing a lot of very thin figures. And just in my own warm-up practice.
Yes.
And I put them out and I was sharing them, and I really liked the dynamic, expressive quality of them. And a lot of women were just responding with "thank you."
Yes.
It makes me like they were emotional about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I thought, wow, maybe I should just do more of these, just to help people see that there is that even that like. We as artists see the appeal, the beauty, the interest, the lessons from other figure types, and that we're kind of trying to lead culture in starting to see, or at least to try to look for that too, and look beyond, I guess, the Sports Illustrated.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. It's important for our practice, so for selfish reasons, like you should draw all people.
Yes.
But you don't think about like the weight it has for people who don't feel seen in the art world. So yeah, that's awesome.
Right,
And
it's
those
very
drawings
eye-opening.
were beautiful, by the way. So
Oh, thank you. It's very eye-opening to do that, and how even just us little artists in our weird, fringe world can make something as just part of our practice, and people are just like, from one end of the spectrum to the other, just whoa, or
Yeah.
what, or
yeah.
It's like, wow.
And that's probably, and we talked a couple episodes about, artists online and branding and how you're seen, and how some of that is out of our control, right? Because whatever we post, people are going to see it how they see it, and this is maybe a perfect example of that. Like, you posted these drawings, and all these people felt seen, but you're going to end up with the guy like on my page who's like, fat chicks, like, which is, I think part of that is just, you just have to, I hate to say write people off, but there's certain people who are just not going to be they're not going to get what you're doing.
Yeah, and they won't, because of that, they won't really be a part of what you're doing or the conversations around what you're doing in a constructive manner.
Right. And there's no use in trying to beg them to see it go away.
Right.
You can try to inform them.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if they're not hearing it, like, and I'm certainly not going to stop on an Instagram post to go, well, actually, this is what I was trying to do, because he's just going to go, yeah, right, dude, whatever. I mean, I posted a drawing once, a video, and a guy that went to the same art school as me, he goes, I noticed you started at the butt. Oh no, he said it even worse. It was like, at that butt. Like, and I'm like, dude,
Wow.
you went to the same school as me. Like, we
Really?
build from the middle of the figure up.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's you might notice me drawing the top and bottom of a figure so that I have an assessment of how far I want to go, and I can also visually figure out where the middle is.
Right.
And then we were trained to draw out, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to starting at the head and then you run off the page because you haven't planned.
Yeah. It's a great strategy.
So,
Wow, I can't believe it. Sometimes that just depresses me when artists themselves are just like, are you kidding me? What?
yeah, I think often folks think you're doing it as like I guess it just feels like entertainment to them in some way.
That's part of why I'm really pushing back and kind of pulling away a bit from the social media world, because it's becoming so much more like, entertain me.
Yes.
And I just want to be like, I'm not here to entertain you.
No.
I'm not a clown. I'm here to actually kind of elevate and speak of the soul of humanity in that
Yes.
stupidly grandiose artistic way. But yeah, I don't know about that at all. That's what's frustrating.
I mean, I had a professor said to me once, if I forget what it was, 2 or 3%, he had some single, let's say it's 3. He says, if 2% of your audience gets what you're doing, then that's
Right.
a success.
Exactly.
And so I think of him often with that, because I know damn well most people just aren't going to get what any of us are doing.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I found it really helps me to stay sane, just to remind myself all the time, I'm going to go over people's heads, or my work is going to go over some people's heads, and that's just inevitable.
Even just the practice of it
Yeah.
is going to go over their heads.
Exactly. Yeah. I was doing, my mermaid series, and this year we're starting into a new version, which is exciting. April and May is going to be new mermaids, but
Nice. They're beautiful. If you haven't, by the way, if you're in the audience here, go check out her Gumroad page. She has these digital collections. I've been begging her to make into a book. They're absolutely gorgeous. So yeah, please check that out.
more process of those on Instagram this year.
Yes, awesome.
But I was doing, I've done a lot of, I represent all ethnicities. I show different sort of cultural mermaids. I have different body sizes in them, and a number of even artistic people that I know, like artist friends and whatnot, would just contact me and say, thank you for showing heavier set or just differently figured bodies in the mermaids. It makes me feel like I could be magical too. Like I could be beautiful in that magical way.
Right.
And I just thought that was so sweet.
It is, and we should also add that, like, as artists, we're not necessarily, like, we're not, or I shouldn't speak for you, but we're not doing it for that reason.
No.
But the idea is that, like, you are studying the world, and you take it as you get it, and you don't try to, change it to suit whatever version of the work you're trying. I mean, you do change. That I should be careful of how I word that. We can't help but change how we are seeing the world and how we present it. But I guess what I'm saying is that
We're still learning from the world, which
yeah,
has
and
a reality to it.
exactly. We're trying. I'm sort of stumbling over my words, but we're trying to show what we see in the world, and
Yeah.
we're not omitting people.
Yeah, right. And on that note, for artists learning figurative work or from the figure itself, anatomy is so important in that it is part of our reality, and
Yes.
we can create really not only more interesting, more grounded, more convincing figurative work, but we can expand on that if we base it on reality.
Correct.
If we base the anatomy on reality. And I think in your classes all the time too, students don't seem to understand that even just for like bony or fleshy landmarks,
Yeah.
those don't change regardless
Yeah.
of someone's weight.
Yes. Yes. I did a lecture on it where I'm showing photos of heavier models and then doing draw-over showing, like,
Yeah.
here's the rib cage, here's the clavicles, here's all the bones that you see on everyone else. It doesn't change just because a person has put on a little weight.
Right.
So yeah.
Learning to see the figure in that way, there's all this diversity in sort of our surface level aesthetic and exterior, but we're all the same.
Yes.
in the interior.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. It's a thank you for that. And I don't know. You never know what is helpful when you're doing these lectures.
That's right.
But I hope that they get it, and I think some did for sure. But again, small percentage of people are going to get it.
Well, and then we also mentioned, there's ageism, there's
Yes.
a concept of like, oh, I want to draw young people. I can't tell you, I get so annoyed with seeing like these, Instagram or drawers who are like just copying a photo of some 19-year-old model.
Yeah.
I don't.
No.
Can we have other portraiture, for example? Like, let's see some older folk.
Yeah.
Let's
Yeah.
see some wrinkles. Let's see some texture and
And-
age and wisdom.
I agree, and I worry that part of that is the audience, right? Like, people are posting what gets them attention,
Yeah.
which again, like, that's
information.
yeah, and we are not supposed to pander, right? We're supposed to try to, like, we give our version of the world and hopefully present it in a way that is interesting to people out there. But, like, you got to be careful not to chase after something because that's what, like,
That's what people are.
that's what the algorithm wants.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah. I love drawing bigger, heavier, rounder bodies.
Oh,
And
God, yeah.
I love doing portraiture with wrinkles. Oh,
Yes.
it's so much fun.
Yeah, especially, I mean, you get to study what time does to something, right? Like,
Yeah.
I think it's kind of an incredible thing. So it's a shame if people are sort of just, hey, give me hot chicks
Yeah.
on your artist feed,
With
and
the same pose where they're sticking their butt out.
yeah. I mean, it's just God. And we've probably all fallen for, like, hey, maybe I should do more of that stuff because this artist is doing it and they're setting the world on fire. But it's a thing you have to kind of fight against.
Right, and we talked about this in a previous episode, I don't remember which one, it was a different subject, but the concept of as an artist, like you're not chasing, like you said, you're not pandering, you have, and don't try to replicate someone else's success,
Yes.
because their path, their journey is going to be totally different, how you get the appeal, the followers, or the audiences that praise what you do is going to be totally different from someone else's.
Right. Or not at all, right?
Right,
Like,
or not at all.
God, I can't remember. There's a woman artist who didn't see any success until, like, Christ, I want to say she was in her 80s. God, I can't remember her name. She just had I'll look it up for the next show. But, that person just stuck to her art and didn't, I mean, I'm sure she had some dark moments where she's just
Oh,
like,
yeah.
why can't I sell a painting? Why is this, have to be so difficult? Because it's not fair.
No. And it is hard.
But she didn't go, okay, well, I guess I'll go make, I don't know, Hallmark cards because that's what women artists do, kind of thing, right? She still stuck to what she did, and eventually the world came to her, you know?
Recognized it. Yeah.
God, I should have remembered her name. I'm terrible with names, I'm sorry.
Yeah, me too.
Anyway, all this is to say that hopefully, maybe this guy's out there listening, and maybe some of this makes more sense, like why we don't stick to just one type of person, one type of body type when we're studying a figure,
Yeah, and that's different from like, I guess your finished work or what your portfolio is made up of, whatever your sort of specialty is or how you
Yeah.
represent the figure in your final quote unquote finished work.
Right.
But with your practice and your learning, I mean, learning should never end, and there's an infinite diversity out there
Yeah.
of figures, so don't keep yourself into one
Amen.
body type or one ethnicity or whatever.
Amen. Like, especially like, my work is, I draw comic books and sometimes work in film and TV, and we have to deal with very rigid like archetypes, right? Like very idealized men and women, and God, I need that break from that, like not just drawing from life, but drawing different types of people, because I like to think that it informs that more idealized work anyway.
Oh, absolutely.
So.
Yeah, and I mean, in so many ways, in so many applications, I couldn't stress enough, I think diversity is the most important thing. I mean,
Yeah.
it is strength, it is, interest.
Exactly. There's I'll have to, maybe I'll post a link in the description. I'll track it down. There's a site. I think it's literally called like Fat Figure Models or something like that. And it's this heavier set model who is just compiling kind of like the stuff you're doing on your Patreon. But she poses for it, or she gets, I guess, friends. And it's just to like have a resource for artists that's not all like, spokesmodel, like swimsuit model type body types, right? Like,
Yeah. I think
and-
that's great.
yeah.
There needs to
Now,
be more.
she has to. I think it's. I should be careful. I'm not sure what her pronouns are. I think, but the site is run and in a way that it's very guarded. Like you have to actually ask permission to access it.
Right.
So I'll post that. If it's still up, I'll post it in the descriptions. And if anybody's into looking for some other reference sites that offer this stuff,
Yeah.
there's another site called Female Anatomy for. Or sorry, wait, no. Is it? I think it's Female Anatomy for Artists. Again, I'll post a link just in case I got that name wrong. And they do a great job of posting different body types. I mean, they could have more, to be frank.
Sure.
But that's where I got this reference for the drawing we've been talking about. And they have, different body types, but different races. Some of it is like, kind of geared towards illustrators. Some is more fine art.
Oh, that's
based.
great.
Yeah.
I like that.
So we probably have time for like maybe one more,
Okay.
and then we'll call it. We'll have to keep. Maybe we should do a shorter one.
Okay. You want to do 3?
Yeah, let's do 3. Just realized the time. Anyway, do you have any last thoughts on this whole mess?
Now that I'm on the spot, I don't.
No. Well, I think, I'm grateful to have you like discuss it, because I mean, I'm just seeing it from an artist's point of view. I've never modeled, and so to me, I've always kind of, every time one of these questions comes up, I think of you, and I think, I wonder what Mairin-taj thinks, because like, you know, I know you well enough that like your instinct would probably have been to tell this guy to take a hike.
Yeah.
But then, you know, it's still, there's still questions that come up after
Yeah.
you think about the goofball comments.
Well, I would just want to, you know, like my instinct is definitely to just say, you know what, it takes a lot of courage and a lot of self-confidence to be a model for
Yes.
artists in general.
Yes.
To bear all and to be quite literally the education that someone is using to
Yes.
better their skill.
Yes.
And so if any individual has the courage and the self-confidence to do that, then you really don't have the right to compliment or, you know, discredit how they look.
Yes. You know what? I'm so glad you worded it that way, because that's what I think has been bugging me, and I couldn't put my finger on it.
Mm.
You know, we've been teaching anatomy together for a long time and figure drawing, and I would always, whenever you'd walk in the room the first time, I would remind the students that, like, hey, that's your actual teacher. I know I have the title of professor, but like you could take me out of the class, and if you just drew with Mairin-taj for 14 weeks, you would just get better. And so maybe that's why it kind of got under my skin, because like, I mean, you hear guys talk like that, especially with other guys, like they're going to be more open to talk like that. I think it bugged me because, you know, this is, God, I shouldn't say it this way just in case people get offended, but, you know, this is our church in a way. And this person is like, to me, if they're willing to model and teach us, then that's kind of a sacred thing, and it bugged me that he was shitty about it. You know, he's being sacrilegious.
Absolutely. Yeah. Don't knock where the education's coming from.
Yes.
Everybody has something to teach.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
maybe that's it. I'm glad you summed it up.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Because it was just bugging me, and I was like, yeah, but like I've heard guys talk like this before. Why is it? It's because of, like you said, she was brave enough to put herself out there to teach us, and then we don't have the right to be shitty about it.
No, you don't. You're right. And I would say artists don't have the right, and also non-artists. You know, like if you're not comfortable going to an art school or an artist group and modeling and sharing your body and showing,
Right.
you know, and helping people learn from it, then you don't really get to criticize another body.
Yeah.
Doing
Yeah,
that.
just shut up about it. So with that, we'll wrap it up. Thank you so much for everybody that supports the show. Our Patreon patrons get the show a week to 10 days early, depending on whether we forget to post the public version.
But we're just too busy. You know?
Yeah, but you also support the show. We get to make
Yeah.
it because of you folks. So check our Patreon links. Both of ours will be in the descriptions, as well as your Instagram.
Yeah.
It's Caya Art.
What is it now? It is studio_Mair, M-A-I.
Okay. And that's it. Thank you for joining us. And again, thank you to the Pennsylvania College of Art and Design for sponsoring the show, and to Black Wing Pencils. And we'll see you guys next month. Thanks.